The screen is dark, but the sound is deafening. It is the sound of 1,000 notifications, the hum of a crowded bar, the forced laughter of people who are terrified of a single moment of silence. You are standing in the center of it, and for the first time in your life, you feel like a ghost. You look at your phone. Another invite, another group chat exploding with trivialities, another digital tether trying to pull you back into a world that no longer fits the shape of your soul. You feel a strange, cold tightening in your chest, a sense that you are broken because you no longer want what everyone else seems to crave. They call it antisocial. They call it a phase. They look at you with a mix of pity and suspicion, as if your desire for solitude is a symptom of a disease they haven't caught yet. But there is a secret hidden in that discomfort, a truth so profound that most people will spend their entire lives running away from it. You aren't losing your mind. You aren't becoming a hermit. You are undergoing a psychological shedding, a molting of the average self to make room for something far more dangerous to the status quo. You are not antisocial. You are evolving faster than the environment around you can compensate for, and this friction you feel is the sound of your old life tearing away from the person you are becoming. Think back to just a few months ago. You were part of the noise. You cared about the opinions of people you didn't even like. You chased the high of a notification, the validation of a like, the shallow comfort of being included in a circle that offered no depth. But then, something shifted. A switch was flipped in the basement of your subconscious. Suddenly, the jokes weren't funny anymore. The parties felt like stage plays where everyone was overacting. The conversations felt like scripts written by people who were afraid to think. You started staying in. You started putting your phone on. Do not disturb, not because you were busy, but because you realized that your attention was the only currency you had left, and you were tired of spending it on things that left you bankrupt. This is the moment where most people break. They feel the isolation and they panic. They run back to the crowd, apologizing for their absence, desperate to be led back into the warmth of the herd. But you stayed in the cold. And that is exactly where the transformation begins. If this transition is starting to make sense, if you feel the weight of this truth, subscribe now, because most people are too afraid to tell you why this isolation is actually your greatest power. Most men live their lives in a state of perpetual distraction, a horizontal existence where they move from one shallow stimulation to the next. They are terrified of the vertical climb. They are terrified of what happens when the music stops and they are forced to look at the man in the mirror without the filter of social approval. When you start to pull away, you are essentially telling the tribe that their gods are no longer your gods. You are rejecting the collective delusion that busy means productive, and that connected means valued. This creates a psychological vacuum. In the beginning, this vacuum feels like loneliness. It feels like a void where your identity used to be. You see your friends posting photos of nights out, and for a split second, you feel that sharp sting of FOMO, that biological urge to belong that kept our ancestors alive on the savannah. But then, you look closer. You see the vacancy in their eyes. You see the forced smiles. You realize that they aren't having fun. They are performing fun for an audience that doesn't care. And in that realization, the loneliness begins to transmute into something else. It becomes a fortress. But here's what most men never realize. The crowd doesn't hate you because you're different. They hate you because you're a reminder of the choice they are too cowardly to make. Every time you decline an invitation to do something meaningless, you are holding up a mirror to their own wasted time. You are a living critique of their lifestyle. This is why the pressure to conform is so high. Your evolution is a threat to their stagnation. They need you to be average so they can feel okay about being average. When you stop playing the game, you break the illusion for everyone else. This is the social conflict you're feeling. It's not a misunderstanding, it's a clash of frequencies. You are vibrating at a rate that the old radio can no longer pick up. You are moving into the realm of the Stoic, inner citadel, that mental space where your happiness is no longer a hostage to the whims of the public. Marcus Aurelius didn't write his meditations for an audience, he wrote them for himself, in the middle of a war, surrounded by people who wanted things from him. He knew that the only real kingdom was the one inside his own mind. And this is where everything changes for you. Imagine a Friday night. The city is breathing with a frantic, desperate energy. Everyone is out, searching for a connection that will last until the morning, a distraction that will drown out the existential dread of a Monday morning. You, however, are in your room. The lights are low. The only sound is the turning of a page or the rhythmic scratching of a pen on paper. There is a profound stillness here. To the outside world, you look like a loser. You look like someone who has been forgotten. But inside that room, you are building an empire. You are studying the mechanics of your own mind. You are dissecting your fears, cataloging your weaknesses, and sharpening your focus like a blade. While they are dissipating their energy into the atmosphere, you are condensing yours. You are becoming a concentrated force of nature. This is the story immersion of the evolving man. You are no longer a character in someone else's movie. You are the director, the writer, and the lead. The silence isn't empty. It's full of the blueprint of your future self. And this is where the philosophical reveal begins to take hold of your reality. The Stoics taught that most of what we call socializing is actually a form of mutual escapism. We hang out with people to avoid hanging out with ourselves. When you reach the stage where you can sit in a room alone for 4 hours without a screen and not feel the urge to crawl out of your skin, you have achieved a level of freedom that 99% of the population will never know. You have broken the addiction to external validation. You have realized that the antisocial label is just a word used by the prison guards to keep the inmates from trying to climb the fence. But you're already over the fence. You're running through the woods now, and the air is cold, and your lungs burn, but for the first time, you can breathe. What happens next is what separates you from the man you were just 6 months ago. You are moving from the identity break into the transformation. You are starting to see that people aren't just people anymore, they are energy vectors. You see who drains you and who sustains you. You see the patterns of manipulation and the loops of victimhood that most people call conversation. And this is where everything changes. You start to realize that your antisocial behavior is actually a highly sophisticated filtering system. By raising the bar for entry into your life, you are naturally repelling the low vibration, high drama individuals who used to clutter your mental space. You are becoming a person of high value, not because of what you own, but because of what you refuse to tolerate. This is the silent command of the evolving man. You don't need to announce your departure. You don't need to post a manifesto about why you're leaving social media or why you're focused on yourself. You just drift away. You become a shadow to the old world and a beacon to the new one. The more you embrace this isolation, the more you realize that you aren't alone at all. You are in the company of every great mind who ever lived. You are in the company of the version of yourself that is waiting 5 years down the road, the one who is grateful that you had the courage to be weird today so that he could be powerful tomorrow. If this is resonating, subscribe, because most people won't tell you this truth. They'll tell you to get out more. They'll tell you to be more social. They'll try to drag you back down to the crab bucket because your ascent makes them feel the weight of their own shells. But you know better. You feel the momentum building. You feel the clarity that only comes when the static of the crowd is muted. You are not antisocial. You are simply no longer interested in the trivial. You have outgrown the playground, and the adults are busy elsewhere, and you are fine with that. You are realizing that the most important conversations you will ever have are the ones that happen in the silence between your thoughts. This is the first stage of self-mastery, the realization that the world's judgment of you is actually a confession of their own limitations. They call you antisocial because they cannot imagine a life that doesn't revolve around the approval of others. They are tethered to the shore, and they are watching you sail into the fog, terrified that you might actually find something out there. And you will. You are already finding it. You are finding the steel in your spine and the fire in your gut. You are finding the man who doesn't need a crowd to feel like a king. But the transformation isn't complete yet. There is a deeper level to this evolution, a psychological shift that moves beyond just staying in. It's about the total restructuring of your reward system. Most people are dopamine junkies, hooked on the cheap hits of social interaction. You are training yourself for the long game, the serotonin of deep achievement and the oxytocin of genuine, rare connection. You are becoming a predator of purpose. While they are grazing on the surface, you are diving deep. You are observing the people who used to be your peers, and you see them chasing validation like dogs chasing cars. They don't know what they'd do if they actually caught it. But you know exactly what you're chasing. You're chasing the ultimate version of your own potential, and that version doesn't hang out at the local bar on a Tuesday night talking about nothing. That version is built in the dark, in the quiet, in the moments when no one is watching and there is no one to impress. This is the core framework of your new life. Every day you choose solitude over shallow company, you are casting a vote for the man you want to become. You are building the inner citadel, brick by brick, and the mortar is your own self-discipline. What happens next is what separates you from the rest. You begin to notice that when you do speak, people listen. Because you aren't leaking energy anymore. You aren't desperate to be heard. You aren't filling the air with UMMS, and ahs, and nervous laughter. Your words have weight because they come from a place of silence. Your presence has gravity because it isn't spread thin over 100 superficial relationships. You have become a mystery to them. And in a world where everyone is oversharing, a mystery is the most powerful thing you can be. They want to know what you're doing. They want to know why you're so calm. They want to know how you can be so alone, and yet so seemingly fulfilled. They will try to pull you back in, just to see if they still have a grip on you. They will send the, "We miss you," texts and the, "Is everything okay?" DMs. They aren't worried about you. They are worried about the fact that they no longer have power over your attention. And this is the ultimate test. This is where you decide if you are truly evolving or if you are just hiding. Evolution requires the death of the old self. And the old self was a social animal, a creature that lived for the tribe. To kill that version of yourself is a violent, lonely act. It feels like a betrayal. But you aren't betraying them. You are being loyal to the truth of your own growth. You are realizing that you cannot carry everyone into the next phase of your life. Some people are meant to stay in the chapters they wrote for themselves. You are writing a new book, and the opening lines are written in the ink of isolation. You are learning to sit with your own thoughts without the need to drown them out. You are learning that the antisocial label is a badge of honor in a society that is terminally addicted to the superficial. You are becoming a master of your own internal landscape, and that is a journey that must be taken alone. The road to self-mastery is a narrow one, and there is no room for a crowd. It is just you, the path, and the silence. And in that silence, you are finally starting to hear the voice that has been trying to speak to you for years. It's not the voice of your parents, or your friends, or the media. It's the voice of your own potential, and it's telling you that everything you've lost was just dead weight. You look at the clock. It's late. The world is finally quiet. You feel a sense of peace that no party could ever provide. You realize that you aren't missing out on anything. The people who are out right now are missing out on this clarity, this focus, this terrifying and beautiful sense of total self-ownership. They are escaping themselves. You are finding yourself. They are reacting to the world. You are creating yours. This is the difference between being a spectator and being a player. This is the difference between being a follower and being a leader. And as you prepare for the next stage of this journey, you realize that the isolation was never a punishment. It was a preparation. It was the training ground where you learn to breathe underwater so that when you finally resurface, you can survive in an atmosphere that would suffocate anyone else. The evolution is happening. The skin is peeling. The old you is dead, and the new you is just beginning to open his eyes. But this is only the first layer. There is something much deeper waiting in the shadows of your solitude, something that will change the way you see every human interaction for the rest of your life. And it all starts with the one thing you've been taught to fear the most. The fear they taught you was the fear of being left behind, but what they never mentioned was the sheer, terrifying power of being the one who walks away first. You are sitting in a room now. Perhaps it's a coffee shop, perhaps a crowded office, or a family gathering where the air feels heavy with the scent of unsaid things and decades-old expectations. You are physically present, but psychologically, you are miles above the canopy. You start to notice the social static. It's a low-frequency hum of anxiety that governs every movement in the room. You see a man laugh at a joke he didn't find funny, just to bridge a gap of 3 seconds of silence that felt like an eternity to him. You see a woman check her reflection in a window, not to see if she looks good, but to see if she still exists in the eyes of the ghosts she carries in her head. This is the uncanny valley of your evolution. The world looks the same, the people look the same, but the code behind their behavior is suddenly visible to you, like green rain falling across the screen of your reality. You realize that most human interaction is not an exchange of information, but a mutual reassurance of safety. People aren't talking to be heard, they are talking to prove they aren't alone. And because you are no longer afraid of being alone, you have become a glitch in their matrix. But here's what most men never realize: your silence is a vacuum that people will desperately try to fill with their own insecurities. When you don't participate in the gossip, when you don't offer up your own trauma for public consumption, and when you don't seek the cheap high of being relatable, you create a tension that the average person cannot handle. They will try to fix you. They will ask if you're depressed. They will tell you that you've changed, and they'll say it with a tone that suggests change is a synonym for failure. But this is where everything changes for you. You are beginning to understand the Stoic concept of the persona, the mask we wear for the world. Most people have become so attached to the mask that their real skin has rotted away underneath. You, however, are peeling the mask off. It's painful, it's bloody, it makes you look antisocial to those who are still wearing theirs. But beneath that mask is the raw, unconditioned power of a man who knows exactly who he is when the lights go out. What happens next is what separates you from the man you were when you still cared about being one of the guys. If this is hitting home, if you're starting to see the invisible threads that hold most people captive, subscribe now, because this journey only gets deeper, and the crowd will never give you the map to the exit. You start to conduct a psychological audit of your entire life. You look at your friends, the ones you've known for years, the ones you stay in touch with out of a sense of obligation rather than inspiration. You realize that your relationship with them was built on a version of you that no longer exists. It was built on shared weaknesses, shared distractions, and a shared fear of actually doing something with your life. This is the social pruning phase. It feels cold. It feels ruthless. You might even feel like a bad person for a while. But the Stoics would tell you that you owe nothing to the past versions of yourself, and certainly nothing to the people who are only in love with those versions. Epictetus once said that if you want to make progress, you must be content to be thought foolish and stupid regarding external things. You are becoming socially stupid to their games so that you can become internally wise to your own purpose. You are moving from a state of social compliance to a state of social competence. The compliant man does what is expected to keep the peace. The competent man does what is necessary to maintain his sovereignty. Imagine walking through a crowded city street. In the past, you were a leaf in the wind, buffeted by the moods of the crowd, the aggressive energy of commuters, the desperate lure of advertisements. Now, you are a mountain. The wind still blows, the noise is still there, but it doesn't move you. You are observing the theater of the absurd. You see the average man as a collection of reactions. He reacts to the news, he reacts to his boss, he reacts to his cravings. He is a puppet whose strings are being pulled by everyone except himself. You, however, have cut the strings. This is the identity break in full effect. You aren't just not social, you are differently social. You have moved from the horizontal plane of fitting in to the vertical plane of standing out, not for the sake of attention, but for the sake of elevation. This is why you feel misunderstood. You are speaking a language of discipline in a world that only understands the dialect of indulgence. You are talking about the long term, about the legacy, about the cold hard truth of mortality, while they are talking about the next weekend, the next drink, the next distraction. And this is where the friction becomes a fire. And this is where everything changes. You stop feeling the need to explain yourself. In the early stages of evolution, you were defensive. You tried to tell people why you were staying in, why you were working on that side project, why you were reading Seneca instead of watching the game. You wanted them to understand so you wouldn't feel so alone. But now, you realize that their understanding is not a requirement for your growth. In fact, their misunderstanding is a confirmation of it. If the people who are going nowhere understand what you're doing, then you aren't going very far. The silent command of this stage is the power of no. A no without an explanation. A no that isn't a negotiation. When you reclaim the power to say no to the trivial, you are automatically saying yes to the essential. You are building a boundary around your soul, and inside that boundary, the real work begins. You are no longer available for things that don't move the needle of your soul. You are becoming a ghost to the world, but for the first time, you are fully visible to yourself. But here is the psychological trigger that most people miss. This isolation isn't about escaping people, it's about escaping the need for people. There is a massive difference between the man who is alone because he can't find a friend and the man who is alone because he has found himself. The first is a victim, the second is a master. You are training your solitude muscle. Just like a muscle in the gym, it must be broken down to grow stronger. The breaking down is the loneliness you felt in segment 1. The growth is the profound self-reliance you are feeling now. You are realizing that most of your social needs were actually social addictions. You were addicted to the noise because the noise drowned out the questions you were too afraid to answer. Now, in the silence, you are answering them. Who are you when no one is watching? What do you value when there is no one to impress? What is your mission when you aren't seeking anyone's permission? These are the questions that create kings, and they can only be answered in the laboratory of the self, far away from the influence of the herd. What happens next is what separates you. You start to see people as they truly are, not as you need them to be. This is a terrifying level of clarity. You see the father who is trying to live through his son. You see the friend who only calls when he needs a favor. You see the partner who is in love with the idea of you, but not the reality of you. In the past, this would have made you bitter. Now, it just makes you observant. You are practicing Stoic detachment. You can be in the room, you can be polite, you can even be charming, but you are no longer entangled. Your happiness is no longer a joint venture. You have taken 100% ownership of your emotional state. This makes you incredibly powerful, but it also makes you dangerous to those who rely on emotional manipulation to get what they want. They can't guilt trip a man who has already forgiven himself. They can't intimidate a man who has already faced his own mortality. They can't distract a man who has found his purpose. You are becoming unfuckwithable, and the world has no category for that except antisocial. If this message is the wake-up call you've been waiting for, subscribe, because most people are sleepwalking through their own lives, and they'll hate you for waking up. Think about the observing people chasing validation scene. You are at a high-end lounge. The music is loud, the drinks are expensive, and the air is thick with the scent of desperation. You see a group of men spending money they don't have to impress women who don't like them, to maintain a status they haven't earned. You see the performative laughter, the constant checking of the vibe, the frantic need to be seen. In the past, you would have felt a twinge of envy. Now, you feel a deep, quiet sense of relief. You are looking at a cage from the outside. You see the bars, even if they are gold-plated. You realize that their social success is actually a form of spiritual slavery. They are prisoners of the now, while you are an architect of the forever. This shift in perspective is the ultimate transformation. You aren't missing out on the party. You are graduating from the playground. You are moving into the psychological storytelling of your own life, where every moment of solitude is a scene of intense character development. And this is where the tension reaches its peak. You are standing on the threshold between your old life and your new one. Behind you is the warmth of the herd, the comfort of being normal, the safety of the average. In front of you is a vast, dark, and uncertain landscape of total self-responsibility. The internal confusion you felt in the beginning is being replaced by a cold certainty. You aren't sure where the path leads, but you are sure that you are the one walking it. You are realizing that the antisocial label was just a test. It was the world's way of asking, do you really want to be free, or do you just want to be liked? You have chosen freedom, and with that choice comes a price. The price is the loss of the trivial. The price is the death of the nice guy who lived for others. The price is the realization that you might spend a long time being the only person who understands the man you are becoming. But here is the flip in expectation. The more you embrace this antisocial evolution, the more magnetic you actually become. It's a paradox of human nature. The more you need people, the more they run from you. The less you need them, the more they are drawn to you. By withdrawing your energy from the social market, you have inadvertently increased its value. People start to wonder about you. They start to sense the strength that comes from your solitude. They see that you aren't desperate, you aren't thirsty, and you aren't looking for a leader. This makes you a natural leader. But you aren't interested in leading the herd. You are interested in finding the other wolves. You are looking for the rare, high-value connections that can only happen between two people who don't need each other but choose each other. This is the identity pressure that most men never survive. They fold under the weight of the isolation before the magnetism has a chance to form. But you are different. You have stayed in the fire long enough to become the steel. You are now in the transformation phase. You see the world as a series of tests. Every social interaction is a test of your boundaries. Every notification is a test of your focus. Every invite is a test of your priorities. You are no longer drifting, you are navigating. You have an internal compass that points toward self-mastery, and it doesn't care about the weather. You are realizing that the silence you once feared is actually the voice of God, or the voice of the universe, or simply the voice of your own highest potential. It can only be heard when the social static is gone. This is the silent command of the evolving man: be still and know. Know your worth, know your direction, know your limit, and most importantly, know that you are no longer the man they think you are. You have evolved past their judgment, and that makes you the most dangerous person in the room, the one who doesn't care if he's invited back. But as you look out over this new landscape, you realize that the most difficult part is yet to come. The social world was easy to reject. The internal world is a different story. Now that you have silenced the external noise, the internal noise is getting louder. The ghosts of your old self are starting to scream. The fears you drowned in socializing are surfacing. You have cleared the stage, and now you have to perform. You have built the fortress, and now you have to defend it. This is the point where most men realize that being antisocial was the easy part. The real challenge is what happens when you finally come face to face with the monster in the mirror and realize that he is the only one who can save you. You have moved through the social conflict, you have survived the isolation, and you have claimed your power. But power without a purpose is just another form of prison. And in the final stage of this evolution, you are about to discover the one truth that will either make you a god or destroy you completely. It's a truth that has been hidden in plain sight, and it's the reason why you were so afraid to be antisocial in the first place. The silence is no longer a void, it has become a weight, a physical presence that sits in the room with you, watching, waiting, and testing the integrity of your new foundation. You have successfully muted the world, but in doing so, you have turned up the volume on the one voice you spent decades trying to ignore, your own. This is the final frontier of the evolution. Most men can handle the rejection of the crowd. They can handle the antisocial labels and the awkward silences at dinner tables. But very few can handle the absolute, unfiltered honesty of their own mind when the distractions are gone. This is where the internal monster wakes up. It is the part of you that knows every lie you've ever told yourself, every shortcut you've ever taken, and every potential you've ever squandered. In the past, you drowned this monster in social noise, in the pursuit of fun, and in the validation of people who were just as terrified as you were. Now, there is nowhere to hide. You are locked in a room with the truth, and the truth is demanding a reckoning. This is the psychological storytelling of the soul, where the protagonist must finally face the antagonist in the mirror. But here's what most men never realize. This confrontation is the only way to achieve true self-mastery. You aren't being punished by your thoughts, you are being audited by them. You are realizing that your antisocial phase was actually a strategic withdrawal to consolidate your forces. You have moved from the identity break of the social world into the transformation of the internal world. You start to see that the discipline you've been building, the early mornings, the late night sessions, the cold refusals of shallow pleasures, was never about the outside world at all. It was about proving to yourself that you are no longer a slave to your impulses. You are becoming a man of high agency. While others are waiting for the world to give them permission to be happy, you are manufacturing your own fulfillment out of the raw materials of your effort. You are realizing that the evolution isn't about being better than them, it's about being unrecognizable to the you of last year. Imagine you are walking through the same city you once sought to conquer through social status. The neon signs are still flashing, the music is still thumping behind the velvet ropes, and the crowds are still surging like a tide of lost souls. But you are walking with a different gait. Your shoulders are back, not out of arrogance, but out of the sheer structural integrity of a man who knows his own worth. You look at the glamour and the hustle of the social scene, and it looks like a children's play to you. You see the strings, you see the actors, you see the desperate need for approval that powers the entire machine. And for the first time, you don't feel a single drop of judgment. You feel a profound, quiet compassion. They aren't bad, they are just unconscious. They are playing a game they don't even know they're in. You, however, have stepped off the board. You are no longer a piece to be moved. You are the one who understands the rules of the game so deeply that you no longer need to play it to win. This is the transformation, in its highest form, the move from rejection to transcendence. If this shift in perspective is clarifying the path for you, subscribe, because the world is designed to keep you distracted, and this channel is your anchor in the storm of the superficial. You are now entering the phase of strategic presence. People have noticed your absence, and the antisocial narrative is starting to shift. They don't call you weird anymore, they call you mysterious. They don't pity your solitude, they envy your focus. They see the results you are starting to produce, the physical change in your body, the clarity in your eyes, the quiet confidence in your voice, and they want to know the secret. They want the hack. They want the shortcut to the peace you've found. But you know there is no shortcut. There is only the long, cold road of isolation and the relentless application of Stoic principles. You are realizing that you aren't avoiding people, you are curating your environment. You are applying the same discipline to your social life that you apply to your diet or your bank account. You are looking for force multipliers, people who challenge your thinking, who mirror your discipline, and who understand that silence is not an emergency that needs to be fixed. These people are rare, and they don't hang out in the places you used to frequent. To find them, you had to become the kind of person they would respect. You had to become a value creator, instead of a validation seeker. But here is the silent command of the evolution. Your power is not in what you say, but in what you no longer feel the need to say. You have reached a level of internal certainty where you no longer need to win arguments or prove your intelligence. You have realized that the loudest person in the room is usually the weakest, and the quietest person is usually the one who has the most to lose and the least to prove. You are practicing Epictetus silence, the ability to witness the madness of the world without being pulled into the vortex. You see people chasing the wind, and you simply stay rooted. You see the social conflict as a series of lessons in emotional control. When someone insults you, you don't react, because you realize their insult is just a projection of their own internal chaos. When someone praises you, you don't get inflated, because you realize their praise is just a reflection of their own current mood. You have detached yourself from the opinions of others, and in doing so, you have become invincible. This is the sovereignty that most men spend their entire lives chasing and never find because they are looking for it in the eyes of a woman or the approval of a boss. And this is where everything changes once again. You start to realize that the evolution is not a destination, but a state of perpetual shedding. You will always be evolving faster than them, because you have embraced the process of dying to your old self every single day. You are the phoenix of the self-mastery niche, constantly burning away the dross of your ego to reveal the gold of your character. You look back at the man you were in segment 1, the one who was confused, hurt, and feeling antisocial, and you realize that he was just a seed. He had to be buried in the dark, under the weight of the dirt, to crack open. The isolation was the soil, the discipline was the water, and the truth was the sun. Now, you are breaking the surface. You are seeing the world as it actually is, not as you were taught it should be. You are realizing that the herd is not something to be feared or hated, but a background noise that provides the contrast for your own signal. You are becoming a psychological master of your own reality, a man who can walk through the fire and not smell like smoke. Think about the observing people chasing validation, seen one last time. But this time, you aren't in the lounge. You are in the mirror. You look at your own reflection, and you don't see the mask anymore. You see the scars of your discipline. You see the lines of focus around your eyes. You see a man who has looked into the abyss of his own solitude and didn't blink. This is the identity pressure that has finally forged the diamond. You realize that being antisocial was never about hating people, it was about loving your own potential too much to let it be diluted by the average. It was about the realization that you only have one life, and to spend it trying to fit in with people who are falling apart is the ultimate form of self-betrayal. You have chosen the hard path, the narrow gate, the Stoic way. And as you stand there, in the quiet of your own mastery, you feel a sense of power that is so deep, so calm, and so absolute that it almost feels like a new sense. You aren't lonely because you are the best company you've ever had. You aren't missed because you were never truly there in the first place. The old you was just a placeholder. The real you has finally arrived. If this message has found you at the right time, subscribe, because the journey from antisocial to architect is just beginning, and most men stop right when it gets interesting. But there is a final, darker realization that comes with this level of evolution. You are starting to see that as you climb higher, the air gets thinner. There are fewer people who can breathe where you are breathing. The social circle doesn't just get smaller, it becomes a social point. You are realizing that the more you master yourself, the more alien you become to the world. You are becoming a high-value outlier, a man who operates on a logic that the crowd cannot grasp. They look at your discipline and call it obsession. They look at your solitude and call it loneliness. They look at your success and call it luck. But you know the truth. You know the cost of the evolution. You know the nights you spent fighting your own biology, the days you spent ignoring the siren song of the easy life, and the months you spent in the wilderness of your own mind. You have paid the price in full, and the receipt is written in the character of the man you see in the mirror. You are no longer evolving faster than them, you have already left their timeline entirely. You are living in a future that they can only see in their dreams, while you are building it with your own two hands in the cold light of day. You look out the window. The world is waking up. The first cars are starting to move, the first phones are starting to buzz, and the first waves of social static are beginning to ripple through the atmosphere. In the past, this would have triggered your anxiety. You would have felt the pressure to join in, to check in, and to fit in. Now, you just smile. You pick up your pen, or your weights, or your book. You return to the work. The work is the only thing that matters now. The work is the prayer, the meditation, and the weapon. You are realizing that the evolution is not a badge you wear, it is a weight you carry with pride. You are the Stoic warrior in a world of digital peasants. You are the psychological sovereign in a world of emotional victims. You are the self-master in a world of stimulus response machines. And as you step into the new day, you feel a strange, cold excitement. Because you know that the isolation wasn't the end of your social life, it was the beginning of your real life. The antisocial label was just the cocoon. And what is emerging now is something the world isn't ready for. But here's the thing about being at the top of the mountain. You can see the other mountains. You can see the other lights flickering in the distance, the other men who have taken the same path, who have paid the same price, and who are standing in their own inner citadels. You aren't alone, you are just elevated. You are part of a global, silent brotherhood of men who refuse to be average. You are part of an elite, psychological class that understands that the greatest power in the universe is the power to say no to the world and yes to yourself. You have survived the identity break. You have mastered the transformation. You have issued the silent command. But don't get comfortable, because the higher you climb, the more the world will try to pull you down. The stronger you become, the more subtle the temptations will be. The evolution never stops, it only gets more demanding. You are now a master of the self, but you are still a student of the path. And as you move forward, you realize that the most dangerous part of the journey is not the people you left behind, but the person you haven't become yet. The room is silent again. The sun is higher now. You feel the momentum of your own purpose pulling you forward. You aren't antisocial. You aren't broken. You aren't going through something. You are becoming something. You are the evolution in human form. And as you prepare to engage with the world on your own terms, you realize that the power you found in the silence is a weapon you must now learn to use with surgical precision. The world thinks it knows you. They think they've put you in a box labeled antisocial. Let them think that. It's the perfect cover for what you're about to do next. Because while they are talking about you, you are already miles ahead, building a reality they won't be able to ignore. This is the end of the beginning. This is the first day of the rest of your reign. You have moved through the fire, and you have come out the other side as something else entirely. But remember, the world is always watching for a moment of weakness. It's waiting for you to look back. It's waiting for you to crave the old warmth. Don't look back. Don't crave the average. You are the outlier now. And the outlier always moves forward, alone, until he finds his equals. This is only phase 1. You have mastered the social withdrawal, but you haven't even begun to explore the social re-entry as a predator of purpose. Most men never make it past this point. They get addicted to the isolation. They turn their inner citadel into an inner prison. They forget that the goal of the evolution is not to hide from the world, but to dominate it from a position of total internal security. You are at the crossroads. You have the power, but do you have the vision? The next step is the most dangerous one of all. It's the step that separates the Stoic hermit from the Stoic king. And if you aren't careful, the same silence that saved you will be the thing that destroys your future. You think you've reached the end of the journey, but you've only just cleared the trailhead. The real climb is about to begin, and most men won't have the stomach for what comes next. This is only phase 1, and most men never make it past this point.